Welcome back, gents. Today we are pushing the boundaries of common sense by trying to forge a high-performance knife out of metal alphabet beads. Don't ask why, just make sure you're subscribed. First, we coat the inside of this square steel canister with anti-spatter spray so the jacket doesn't become a permanent part of the blade. In go the letters. We are literally trying to forge vocabulary here. Give the canister a solid tapping with the hammer to pack them down tightly. Next, we take some pure steel powder and scoop it in with a spoon like we're baking a terrifyingly heavy cake. Next up, we grab a jar of pure steel powder. Using a spoon like we're baking a cake, we carefully scoop it in to fill all the microscopic voids between those letters. Give it another solid tapping session with the hammer to let the powder settle into every crack. After putting on our safety gear, we weld every single edge of that cap to prevent any air from getting inside during the heat. Once the welding sparks settle, use the tongs to throw our little project straight into the roaring forge furnace. Once the canister hits a uniform welding heat, we yank it out and march it straight over to the hydraulic press. This is the crucial moment where we squeeze the absolute life out of the canister, forcing the letters and the steel powder to melt into one single mass. Now that the billet is properly compacted, we weld a temporary rebar handle onto the end. My hands are tough, but holding onto glowing hot tool steel with bare fingers is a bridge too far, even for a blacksmith. With our new handle secure, the block slides right back into the forge furnace for another quick heat soak. Time for a quick tool swap while the steel cooks. Out go the flat press dies, and in come the V-shaped swage dies. The billet is back to a bright yellow heat, so we bring it back out and start pressing the corners. By rotating it consistently with every stroke, we're turning this square block into an octagonal rod. Keep flipping and smoothing out the high spots under the press dies. Precision matters here if we want a balanced rod. It's losing its forge heat pretty fast, so we slide it back into the fire to prep it for the real beatdown. Enter the pneumatic power hammer, the ultimate neighbor-waking machine. With rapid, heavy blows, we draw out the steel, elongating the rod evenly. It's loud, it's violent, and it's easily the most satisfying part of the day. Just watch that steel grow under the rhythmic strikes until it reaches the perfect length. Let's leave our glowing red bar clamped in the vise to cool down for a second. Look at that gorgeous, crusty piece of potential tool steel. Time to slice off that temporary rebar handle we welded on earlier. The cutting disc makes quick work of it, showering the shop with beautiful hot sparks. Now we're cutting through the end of the billet bar itself to trim away any unwelded steel jacket scrap. Let the bad chunks fall. We keep slicing into the main piece to split it cleanly. It takes some serious forearm power and a steady grip to keep this wheel tracking straight through dense carbon steel. Reclamp it flat and switch to a thick grinding disc. We're aggressively hogging off all that dark, stubborn forge scale until we hit shiny, raw metal. Back to grinding the opposite face flat. Removing the scale now prevents internal flaws from ruining our next massive forge welding stack. Let's grab the tape measure and a marker to map out our precise cut lines. We're splitting this bar into 5 equal-sized segments to stack them up. Back to the cutting wheel we go. Slicing through solid, dense steel takes some real patience, so don't try to rush the tool or you'll snap the disc. Now we stack our 5 polished plates neatly on top of each other like a high-carbon sandwich. Line them up perfectly flush, clamp them down tight with the red F-clamp, and grab the MIG welder. We're going to run a solid weld bead down the seams to lock this multi-layered stack into a brand new billet. The new layered billet goes right back into the roaring forge to bring it up to a bright yellow welding temperature. Once it's glowing, we pull it out and shower it with sodium tetraborate, classic borax flux. This melts across the hot surface, glassy and smooth, sealing the gaps and eating away any hidden oxides. We bring out the hand sledgehammer and deliver heavy, overlapping blows to forge weld these 5 layers into a single, unified piece of pattern-welded steel. Hit it hard, keep it straight, and make every blow count. Throw on a little more borax flux for good measure, and slide the billet back into the forge to let it soak in the heat. The foundation for our pattern is officially set, gents. Don't go anywhere, because the real blade shaping is about to begin. Back to the hydraulic press. We are crushing this layered stack down, squeezing out the excess borax and forcing those 5 separate blocks to truly become one piece of steel. Watch the scale fly. It lost a bit of heat, so slide it right back into the screaming furnace to soak up that cooking temperature. Pull it out and start drawing it out flat. The press is thumping down, thinning out the profile and making it resemble a bar stock blade blank. Rotate it 90 degrees to squash the sides. Keeping the width controlled ensures we maintain a straight, uniform bar. Pop it back into the heat. Squeezing cold steel is a great way to crack your billet and waste hours of premium labor. Time for some classic hand hammering on the anvil. The machines did the heavy work, but the human touch fixes the edges, straightens the curves, and manually sets the baseline profile of the future blade. Keep those strikes overlapping. Just look at the texture on that steel. The scale is flaking right off as it begins to cool. This is the calm before the storm because next up, we're cutting away the scrap metal. Bring out the chop saw. Time to cleanly slice off that trusty rebar handle we've been clinging to. Massive sparks fly as the abrasive wheel cuts through the hardened steel effortlessly. Over to the belt sander. We're profiling the inside curves of the handle using the small contact wheel of the machine. Flat grind against the platen to clean up the profile edges of the handle tang. Watch your finger placement here. Steady pressure is everything. Keep a firm, stable grip to make sure you don't grind uneven low spots into the steel. Making long, smooth passes down the full length of the blade. This aligns our grind-scratch pattern perfectly before we get fancy. Hit the handle flats real quick to ensure everything is flat for the wooden scale sandwich we'll build later. Now we transition over to the rotary disc sander. This tool lets us flat grind the main bevel geometries with surgical precision. Watch that edge contact. Sparks are flying as we establish the initial cutting edge angle along the belly. Over to the drill press to punch out the pinholes in the handle tang. Douse it with a little cutting fluid or let the drill bit eat through dry steel. Take it slow or you'll snap a perfectly good carbide bit. Time for some custom details. We're using a high RPM rotary tool with a carving burr to cut clean, rhythmic notches into the spine of the knife. This file work looks killer and gives your thumb a solid grip. Running a quick screw through our pin alignment hole, we need the handle template locked down perfectly flush before we do any more face work. Back to the handheld angle grinder with a sanding disc. We are aggressively flattening the primary grind of the blade, cleaning up deep scratches and getting the surface prepped for the critical heat treat stage. Backing out that temporary screw. The blade profile is dialed in, meaning it's finally time for the most stressful part of any build, the heat treatment. Slide the naked blade into the forge furnace. We need to heat it up evenly to non-magnetic critical temperature, around 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, so the crystalline structure of the carbon steel is ready to harden. Quench time. Plunge it straight down into the engine oil canister. Fire and thick white smoke explode out as the liquid instantly freezes the atomic structure of the steel, turning it rock hard. Straight into the box of ash for a controlled, slower cooling process. We don't want any thermal shock cracking our blade after all this hard work. Digging our blade out of the ash pile like a buried treasure. Give it a rough scrub with a rag to clear off the baked-on crust so we can inspect the steel for any warping. Time to remove that black, crusty quench scale. Fire up the angle grinder with a polishing pad and buff the flats of the blade back to shiny metal. Watch those clean silver surfaces reveal themselves again. Spray it down with fluid and bring out the hand sanding block. This is pure manual labor, gents. We are working our way through the grits, wet sanding the blade flat to give it a flawless satin finish before the big etch reveals our alphabet pattern. Now for the moment of truth. We take our freshly prepped blade and submerge it completely into a container of dark ferric chloride acid. This chemical bath is where the real magic happens. We drop it into a bowl of water and start scrubbing the face with fine sandpaper. Look at that contrast starting to pop out under the water. The acid eats away the softer steel layers faster, leaving the harder lines behind. Keep polishing away that dark residue to fully expose the metal. There it is, the beautiful high-contrast Damascus pattern created from our literal alphabet beads. Time for the handle assembly. We're picking out a pair of dense, premium hardwood slabs from the wall shelf to match this blade. Using the pre-drilled holes in the steel tang as our perfect guide, we drill straight through the wood. Go easy here so you don't blow out the backside of the grain. Grab a sharp pencil and trace the exact outline of the handle tang onto the wood piece. This gives us our roadmap for the cutting phase. Unclamp the blade, pop the wood scale off, and draw a couple of quick centerline reference marks for the next step. Walking back over to our favorite line of machinery. Let's see if the bandsaw is tracking straight today. Fire it up and follow that pencil line to cut out the rough handle profile. Don't force the wood block too hard against the blade or you risk snapping it. Trimming off the excess chunks from the corners. Cutting both matching wooden handle scales at the same time ensures perfect symmetry later on. We move over to the big spinning disc sander to flatten and true up the front faces of the scales. Once this handle is permanently glued onto the knife, you won't be able to easily reach this front edge, so shape it perfectly now. Back to the bench to unscrew our temporary alignment pins and separate the wooden scales. Time for the permanent bond. Slap some more glue onto the exposed steel tang on the other side. Press the second wooden scale down over the pins and squeeze it tight. Apply a bit of quick-setting liquid glue or activator around the outer seams to lock everything down and ensure an absolutely flawless, watertight seal. Grab a ball-peen hammer and carefully strike the ends of our protruding brass pins. This flattens and expands the metal, creating a permanent rivet that locks the handle scales onto the tang forever. Back to the grinding wheel. We are aggressively hogging off the excess wood, flattening the sides, and bringing the scales completely flush with the steel spine. Watch those wood shavings fly as we match the profile of the scales to the contours of the knife tang. Keep it moving smoothly to avoid scorching the wood. Now we're shifting over to the slack belt area to sculpt the ergonomics. Carefully grinding out the finger grooves so this blade fits naturally into your hand like a glove. Blending the curves around the front choil and matching the wood perfectly to that custom notched spine we carved earlier. Refining the butt end of the handle on the belt to finish up our rough shaping phase. Keep a close eye on your symmetry here, gents. Time for some classic manual labor. We're hand sanding the wooden scales with fine grit sandpaper to smooth out any harsh scratches left behind by the power tools. Now for the most satisfying part of the entire handle build, wiping on a coat of premium wood finish oil. Watch that rich grain pop instantly. Time to put an edge on this beast. We fire up our belt sharpener tool and carefully grind a razor-sharp secondary bevel along the edge. Look at those fine sparks. To take this edge from sharp to scary sharp, we secure a leather strop loaded with polishing compound into the vise and strop the blade back and forth to achieve a mirror finish. Let's do the classic paper test. Look at that effortless, whisper-quiet slice. That is what a perfectly forged edge looks like, boys. Now for the ultimate test of edge geometry and structural integrity. A plastic water bottle loaded up right onto the anvil. Boom! Sliced clean through in slow motion, water exploding everywhere, and the blade didn't even care about the impact. Just admire the finished piece, boys. A custom heavy-duty Damascus camp knife forged from literal alphabet beads and steel powder. The pattern is completely unique. The wood handle looks rich, and that edge is absolutely terrifying. Another successful build in the books. Thanks for sticking around for this experiment, gents. Smash that subscribe button, drop a comment with what we should forge next, and I'll see you in the next build.